Hello and welcome to The Dirty. I am your host, the world's greatest daddy, Eric Berry. This is my third time trying to record this, and I'm already behind, so I'm a little stressed out. It's Wednesday, July 24th at 6:37 p.m. Central Daylight Time. Please do me a favor, subscribe to the show, like, comment, share. That will definitely help the algorithm out. On today's show, we have Arielle Isaac Norman, who's an absolutely hilarious and smart comedian. We met back in 2016 or 2017 before the Austin comedy boom and all the clubs had opened up at an open mic. I am here in Austin. I think this is going to be the last time that you see me recording from Austin for a bit because I cannot afford Austin. Austin is very expensive and it has absolutely drained my bank account being back here. The other day I went to go get pho, Vietnamese soup to go, and pre-tip it was $26. Nothing else, no egg rolls, whatever. And I just said, I can't do it, you know. And then there's no public transportation, so you're having to Uber everywhere. When I first moved here last year, the room I was renting out was like kind of close to the airport. Like the nearest walkable thing was 17 minutes, and that was just to go to a gas station, 7-Eleven. So, you know, consequently, it's like eating out all the time, clearly gaining weight. Look at those chubby little cheeks there. And spending money on Ubers and eating out, and it's so expensive. That room that I was renting last year, the owner, he bought it in like 2017 or 18 for $300,000. Fast forward 5 years, and it was worth $900,000, if that gives you any perspective on how Austin's changed. I do think it stripped out a lot of the weirdness, or like most of the weirdness. You know, people will say, keep Austin weird, and it's like, it has not been weird for years. I saw a girl the other day who was wearing a shirt that said, keep Austin, fuck you. Which, you know, I understand. That said, Austin does have some amazing things. You know, the architecture of the houses is super cool and weird and funky and kind of Western style. Amazing barbecue, stuff like float in the river. We're floating the river here. We're got in the Chattanooga Hoochie Coochie. As long as you have a car to get there. Great dive bars, and obviously amazing comedians. But I decided, you know, I really need a city that has public transportation, that has a good comedy scene, and that is quote unquote affordable, whatever that means by US terms now. So it seems like Philadelphia may be that place. On top of that, I'm having health issues, as I mentioned last episode. I have to take this super cool poop test. I have to somehow put this toilet hat, which is apparently what it's called, into the toilet and poop into that thing, and then collect way too many samples. Way too many vials. This isn't even all of them, of poop. In fact, how about 2 giant ones that I'm supposed to put in the freezer? God bless the owner of this Airbnb. And that's just the tip of the poopsicle in terms of some health stuff I have going on. So that's not fun. And I am leaving love here. And it sucks. It's something, in theory, if I were healthier, I guess, or being productive for myself, I would have been over a long time ago, but I'm not. It's not often that I meet a girl where I'm like, yeah, let's go. And I did meet one here, but it is a love that cannot be. So, yeah. That said, we do have an amazing show Arielle Isaac Norman. Super funny, super smart, while being super funny, and that's rare to see in comedy. So go check her special out, Ellen DeGenderless, on YouTube. I'll talk a little bit about that at the end of the conversation. We talk about a lot of stuff. We talk about how the Austin comedy scene has changed. We talked about how Austin has changed. We talk about like the division in the U.S. and people wanting to be on teams of left and right. We talk about Kill Tony and some of the behind-the-scenes stuff there and how Kill Tony's had an impact on comedy and not necessarily all of it great. And she talks about RFK, who's someone I know very little about. All this happened this is recorded 2 weeks ago, attempt on Trump and pre-Biden dropping out, but still lots of interesting stuff. Largely unedited because there was no great editing point. The whole thing was interesting, and I didn't have time to turn it into like 5 episodes. So I really hope you enjoy that episode. Let's get to that now, and I'll see you on the other side of it.
Do you want me to look at you, or can we look at the camera? I think it's fun. It's like
you do whatever you want.
Remember those old Remember it was like one of those early kind of YouTube-y things where it was like just a couple of high people reading nothing. Remember how easy it used to be famous on the internet?
I do.
I guess it still is now if you're an idiot. There's this bitch on TikTok who is constantly, like literally every day, she puts up like 5 different videos that are like, here's how to use so-and-so's pronouns. And it's always like these ridiculous pronouns that maybe one person in the world is using, or maybe someone's trolling her and sending her those pronouns. And then she sits there and makes these insanely earnest videos telling you how to use these stupid pronouns.
Today's pronoun of the day is lemons.
So I'm making fun of both sides. I'm making fun of the crazy people who would explain insane pronouns as if they're valid. And I'm making fun of conservatives for making their easy joke. And so and then most people I've come to realize really are not watching the whole video. Even these videos that are kept to like 60 seconds, 90 seconds or less. Remember when it was like we would complain that people wouldn't read the article, they would just read the headline, right? And the headlines are made into this clickbait nonsense. It's sometimes almost the opposite of what the headline says. But now it's like people will only watch the first 3 seconds of a video and then start commenting. Yeah. And so all these people are like, why would I ever listen to a blue-haired Smurf bitch or whatever? And that's like, yeah, it's visibly a wig. I even this time made it so I would keep readjusting my wig between cuts. Yeah. So it would look more and more ridiculous and super obvious. Like I'm trying to make it very obvious for people, but most people are retarded. So it is what it is. Yeah. So I was taking it a little bit personally, like, oh man, it's because of me that like people are seeing me and just assuming my politics, and I'm just getting all this hate from all these idiots. But then like I was watching RFK. RFK Jr. has now, he apparently just got a social media team finally, because now he's putting out all these videos that are going viral and they're so good. Well, one of them was a couple of black people asking him, like different clips of put together of a couple different black people asking him about reparations. And he starts off by saying, I think there's a strong case for reparations for these reasons. But the thing is, that's a non-starter because it'll never pass. And here's why it will never pass. And here are the reasons that it's difficult. And what I would do for the black community is, and then he lists all these beautiful, wonderful ideas of what could actually be done to improve the lives and everything. But so then you go into the comments, and like 90% of the comment threads are started by people going like, oh, you stupid liberal cuck giving reparations to people. Right. And it's like, okay, so I don't need to take this as personally. I just need it to spare for our culture because people are too retarded and too, they would rather just find something to hate and make fun of and immediately go comment than bother to see what anyone's actually trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, I've not been living in the country, so I've conveniently distanced myself a little bit from getting caught up in that part of the news cycle, but like, so I'm not going to pretend to know a ton about RFK, but like,
you should look into him. It's
well,
awesome.
Yeah, I mean,
gaining ground, man.
It's like, but when people bring him up, the first thing I hear is like, oh, that crazy anti-vaxxer, da da da. So let's say that that's true, specific to the COVID vaccine, whatever. cool. Is everything else about him good? Like,
right, exactly.
Or
It's
whatever. But is that team thing or whatever.
Even if he were an anti-vaxxer, even if that were an appropriate thing to call him, it's like there's really shitty aspects to Trump and Biden and Harris. And so I don't see that would even be a disqualifier.
That's what I mean.
But at the same time, like, he's not anti-vax. I mean, like, a good analogy for it is if somebody, like, because he wants to clean up vaccines. He wants to make sure that pharmaceutical companies have some liability that, you know, if their vaccines turn out to be doing more harm than good, that they should have to be responsible for that in some way. He wants there to be better studies on things. That's all. It's like if someone was trying to clean up the water in Flint, Michigan, and you called them anti-water.
Right.
Like, no, you're not anti-water. You're not anti-vaccine. He's saying, you know, his kids have all kinds of vaccines. He has all kinds of vaccines. He's not anti-vax. And anti-vax is one of these epithets that just, you know, the powers that be, the mainstream media, the people that are all kind of collude together. You want to talk about collusion? We know the government and the mainstream media and kind of the liberal elites, whatever, neoliberal elites, like, they are all in collusion together. And so they come up with these things where you go, okay, we can just call them anti-vaxxers. Now, you know, the Pfizer and Moderna things aren't even vaccines. They're this kind of novel mRNA technology. So it's like this double whammy because you're calling something that's not really a vaccine, and then calling anybody who has any, you know, any hesitation, any questions, who's like, well, is the cost benefit analysis really good if I'm young and healthy? Is that really, are you sure it's going to really help others if I take it? Like, do we really know that it's going to stop the spread if I take, you know, are we sure about this technology? Anybody who had any questions like that has been labeled an anti-vaxxer, but it's like, well, a lot of us were paying attention. But again, it's like, it sucks because anyone listening to this who has this different news source that I do is going to be like, no, you're just falling for that propaganda. And I would say you're falling for other propaganda. But we all, it's like, I can't even blame people because we all have such different news sources and algorithms feeding us. It's like, don't blame me if you disagree with me. Don't blame other people. I don't blame other people because we all have to try to figure out how to come together on it because, like, we're all getting fed such different stories that, like, we're all trying our best. But from what I can tell, RFK is based, and the vaccines and all that kind. There's a lot of.
I don't know if this is going to either tremendously help or hurt my YouTube algorithm with all of these words in here. But
do they? Just don't put them in the description, right?
They scan all that stuff now. Like, if there's because they build in, like, the closed captions and stuff like that.
Right.
But my real point in that, and, like, without digging into the specifics of him or anything else, was just like, you touched on it with, like, saying that could we come up with this, like, epithet to use against people, and then we live in such a binary team world that it's like, well, no, he's considered by, I'll say, my mom. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh yeah, he's like Trump light or something like that because no, but I mean the vaccine thing, and you're like, okay, I mean, but that's not true. But also, like, everything else, if that's there can be no good from someone who had a different opinion about a vaccine.
I mean, go listen to an hour of RFK talking to anyone. I don't care. Just literally put it in Spotify and YouTube, something. Just go listen to Instagram now. Just go listen to him talk and see if you don't immediately fall in love with this man. Anybody could fall in love with this man.
I watched the Netflix roast. The voice is tough.
What's good again about now that he has a social media team and he's doing Instagram videos is we happen to live in this era of captions, right? So now that's the thing that's so good about Instagram. Now with those captions, it helps your brain so much that it almost feels like he had some kind of miracle surgery. Like, I don't even remember his voice being bad when watching these Instagram ones. Yeah. So the caption thing is huge to help him, and it's kind of reminds me of, like, JFK doing well because he was on TV and looked so handsome. Like, now, because of Instagram captions, that could actually save this guy's campaign.
I would love 30 years from now. I mean, you should, if you were to get elected, where they're like, oh, it's because of Instagram captions.
That's what it was. Yeah.
What's your thought on, like, I don't know Austin post pandemic, pre-pandemic. I came here a couple times. It's where I ended up actually seeing you at, like, a mic, but, like, they used to say, like, Austin's this, like, blue city when I have lived here and walking around, I feel like it's purple, and I feel like it's only purple because there's blue and red mixed together. It's not because like the people are particularly purple. No,
I would say it's purple. It's always been purple. And it's always, what it has been that we really want to keep is very like live and let live in a pluralistic way. Like we don't need to be all blue in this little blue bubble in a red state. Like it's actually great that we have some blue people, some red people, some purple people, some, blue leaning purples and some red leaning purples. And a lot of people kind of are in their own bubbles. And so they think Austin is one direction more than the other. But I don't live in a bubble. And so I know that there's a ton of purple here. And when you talk to people one-on-one, it really turns out like, a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people are really moderate. And some people are just like, they think of themselves as one political party or the other, but then their actual opinions are much more moderate. We're getting a lot of people here like right now famously from California. That's been going on for a while, but especially in the post-pandemic times, the people who are coming from California, kind of like Rogan, are people who were generally liberal, but became like, okay, well now California is like too communist, or they're pushing this gender shit on my kids in school, or this or that. So it's people who like are Democrat, kind of basically liberal, whatever, but are going, California is too much. So they want to come to Texas because it's purpler here. They still want, and come to Austin specifically because they still want a generally liberal situation, but not what California is doing. So that, I actually like that. I think that's great. Those people have like a similar politics to me, where it's like, all right, I want a pretty liberal situation. I call myself conservatively liberal, kind of like a conservatively liberal libertarian. Maybe, I don't know. It depends on how you define all of those terms.
I guess because like in like the comedy scene here, I feel like I see a more conservative leaning demographic, and like that's almost like a response to like a bunch of people comedian people flocking here. And then when in the day when I'm on my computer and I go to like a cafe and it's like, I like the door has like the trans flag hanging through it that I'm like pushing through, and someone's like, what are your pronouns, when they're giving me a cup of coffee?
Like, we gotta write your pronouns on your coffee cup.
Like, I don't know. I guess I'm just seeing
great.
the two.
That's a good coffee shop like sketch though, where like Arielle, they, them. Wait, I didn't tell you that. Whatever. You just say Kevin, he, him.
Yeah.
Brittany, she, they. Like every.
Yeah.
Oh. Screensaver. Okay. Yeah. No. I mean, in the pre-Rogan times, or the pre-post COVID times. I think that's a good way of putting it, actually. In the pre-post COVID times, it was the comedy scene leaned much more liberal, much more kind of woke. I moved here in 2015, so it wasn't like exactly woke yet when I first moved here, but generally liberal and more alt. More of an alt comedy scene. Like we never really had a clear distinction because we only had Cap City Comedy Club and Velveeta Room, and then like the improv theaters, and then everything. We just had a ton of independent shows, but it wasn't like all the independent shows were really like thought of as alt. It was just we needed a bunch more shows because we all wanted to do a lot of comedy besides just at the clubs.
Yeah.
But some of them definitely were more alt. Like there's a lot of comics who were kind of more alt, but they also worked at the clubs. So we never really had like this kind of like there's the indie scene and the official, it was just kind of like a medley of all that, and our nicely sized but relatively small compared to now scene.
Yeah.
And so in the before times, the scene leaned much more liberal and kind of like, kind of had to be careful about what you say on some topics. And I could get away with more because I'm a woman and a gendery lesbian type. And so, but then I always would find, because I would always be in every different clique. And so like there were some people who would do more of the stuff that like, kind of like what you might see at Mothership now. And that was like this place that used to be called the Gatsby. It's Malavita now, but we used to do comedy there on Tuesdays and then sometimes on the weekends. And it was kind of like the bad boys of Austin comedy.
Where Mothership is now?
No. It's on 6th Street. It's where Malavita is now. It's a really cool Latin club now. So, R.I.P. Gatsby, but I'm glad for Malavita. So it was like really niche. There was some guys in Georgetown. There was like little pockets of places where you could kind of do a little bit of this kind of just non-woke. It wasn't really always anti-woke yet. That's a newer dynamic, but it was just kind of non-woke comedy.
Yeah.
And anything goes comedy. It wasn't like all focused on being non-woke. It was just like anything goes. But you could, so in the post-Rogan times, and probably more pertinently the post-Kill Tony times, what I hear and what I've seen to some extent is that the open mic scene is now quite inhospitable. I don't, do them anymore, but because it's no longer like a fun place to be going and doing open mics and seeing your friends and stuff. It's like a lot of people just a ton of people signing up. And so and they're all trying to get on Kill Tony. So they're all doing just race, sexist, transphobe, whatever, and like not always necessarily funny, because like all of those things can be very funny. Don't get me wrong. You just, it's when you have like newer comics who are just trying that stuff, and they're rewarded right now for doing 1 minute of like whatever fucked up jokes that they can do, then that makes for a shitty open mic scene. And that's my biggest grudge against Kill Tony. Like I really like Tony Hinchcliffe. I don't know. I mean, there's some things I've heard about him that give me pause, but I don't know if they're true. But like, he's always been really kind to me. I love a lot of his jokes. I know a lot of people who like say he's not funny. I'm like, I think he's really funny. I love most of his jokes. Like, I like that kind of humor. But he has encouraged this comedy scene for the open mic world, for those developing comics. It has made it into this really anti-woke edgelord kind of thing.
I think you can talk about I have a joke. I have a joke that I talk about what time I went on a date with a trans woman, didn't know it, and here's a faggot.
Yeah.
But like, I think because of the minute format, people think if I just touch on this word,
right,
and it's like, but what's the concept that you're getting at? And there's no concept. It's like,
well, and that's why the biggest criticism for me of the Kill Tony thing is like, so now has this huge outsized impact in the comedy world of like who's getting some success and fame, and it's like just for doing a minute, and like that's not a format that I really shine in, doing a minute. But and also like a lot of the best comics, like it's not necessarily like, even like Louis C.K., like any of us could do a minute and be like, oh, okay, great, but but it's like that's not how you find the comics with really a lot to say,
right?
It's not how you like. That's the kind of comedy I like. Like I like funny little jokes that are quick, like kind of like something faggot this if it's funny, but like I want to get to the meat of stuff, like Dave Chappelle in a minute. You know what I mean? Like that's not really. And then my other thing is like, I always kind of want to do a bit about this, but you see who Tony elevates. It's like, it's someone who's 450 pounds, or they're in a wheelchair and they don't have arms, or they've got some, terminal illness, or this, that, or the other. I'm like, talk about DEI.
Yeah.
This guy's got a DEI program on steroids to the point where it's like a DEI circus show of like, who's gonna do well if you get on here. If you get on here and you're either 59 pounds or 359 pounds, but also have one eye and what, like.
All right.
And then you can tell decent enough. And then these people who've been doing comedy for like a year and a half, once a week in whatever other state, and who've moved here, like all of a sudden they're opening for all these big people and they're doing this, and then everyone's like, oh, they have this Kill Tony success. And it's like, yeah, but I know 400 better comedians in Austin than this person.
Do you know who Aaron Belial is?
The name is familiar.
He's a Kill Tony comedian who he's mute. He can't talk, and he push.
Yeah.
So, and he ended up getting on America's Got Talent.
Okay.
I literally have video of it because I lived in Lisbon, Portugal. I knew Aaron before he ever did comedy. And me and some of the other, there's actually a robust scene in Lisbon that I kind of helped build. And like me and some other comedians encouraged Aaron to get on stage. And he did, and like helped workshop him with jokes with him. And like I have like WhatsApp messages with him, like helping him on, he has a bit about like how he was born with an umbilical cord around his neck, but he still got circumcised. So the doctors are like priorities first.
Yeah.
And like I help, like, like I'm fairly certain I came up with that concept, but like, anyway, and then he started getting like a big TikTok following. I kind of gave him some advice on some videos, and he blew up. And then all right, I'm not sure if I should cut this out. Not everything in Kill Tony is 100% organic.
Yeah.
And I know there's been conspiracy theories about that. I have the text from him saying, I'm going to be in Austin next month. I'm going to be on Kill Tony.
Exactly.
He lives in Canada, or he lived in Canada. He flew down here.
Right.
And
he wasn't just putting his name in the bucket.
And it was terrible pick after pick. You can go watch the episode where it was like Tony like got 10 people off stage and he's like, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. Okay, one last try.
Right.
And it's Aaron Belial and the light. He says his joke and the lights and the confetti and the whatever. I mean,
right.
So to Tony's credit, like,
good production. That's a great.
And he knows a story arc.
He has a story arc.
And
exactly. Look, and there's a part of me that's very happy for some of these people because that Aaron, it sounds like a very funny guy, you know, and so like some of these people would never get another chance, and it would you know, you're gonna live with this shitty disease your whole life or whatever, and this is really cool for you. It's just that I wish it were more of a like, let's also try to find really good comics.
Yeah, well,
general.
no, Aaron and I aren't on speaking terms anymore, and he could never talk anyway. But like but. Yeah. My first night, February 4th last year, coming to Texas, and I was excited to see him. I haven't seen him since Portugal, and he had this success. His Kill Tony hadn't aired yet. And we go to the Creek, and I was excited to be at the Creek because I knew the Creek from Long Island City in New York.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, so I'm like kind of excited. And we go around, and he's getting introduced to comedians and Jason Rouse and all these people, and I'm holding his drink because I'm a nice person, and there's a guy who has, and there's never like, oh, hey, this is my friend Eric who's been doing this 10 years who helped me get into comedy.
Yeah.
They thought I was his assistant.
Yeah.
And he like big timed me.
Yeah.
And ended up, Christina Mariani was on stage at Vulcan, and I was like, oh, she's so funny. I kind of crush on her, whatever. And he's like, he's like, I don't know who the fuck that is. I'm like, she's been on Kill Tony.
Yeah.
And then I show him that, and then she gets off stage, and he goes over and pretends like he knows all about her, and da da da. And I'm like, and then the America's Got Talent thing. I'm like, motherfucker, half the battle, I'm not saying you haven't had like a terribly painful life, but like half the battle of comedy for me is like remembering exactly what I wanted to say and whatever. And then when you go up and push spacebar, like, you know, and he'll bitch. He'll be like, ugh, it's not even like a real theater that I'm playing this. I'm like, dude, you've been doing comedy a year and a half and you're on a international theater tour.
Right.
That's not the expectation that should be set for.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it sucks because, it's really hard to you. So much of this is like navigating the social dynamics of it, and then getting lucky breaks and things. And so you've got this guy Tony who is really like, he is using these people. I mean, they enjoy it, what I said, but it's like he gets to elevate himself. And so look what a cool guy I am. I'm elevating these people with all these diseases who would never get a chance, whatever. And again, some of that's really cool that some of those people would never have. And it's like, they're doing really fun stuff. But it's also like, okay, like all of us comics complain about all these TikTok idiots who just kind of like get famous on TikTok, and then they're doing stand-up, but they're bad at stand-up, but they're selling out all these things, and that's just it. It's like, well, you're contributing to that. And you got all these people who aren't good enough comedians, but they're just famous, and people just love fame. They just suck fame's cock all day long. And so you sit there, and it's like, that's who's and it's like, you know, as cool as it is that we can all kind of create our own way now in comedy, we have lost something from, like, I think about like Mark Norman, who like, you know, we all know is a famous comic and he tours and is successful, but like, I'm like, when did he really even get that famous? Because in the old days, like, you would just know about someone like that, but there's no way to like follow them. You would just know that name, and then you would buy tickets some. And there were people who were marketing the good comics out, and there were things. Yeah. There was a lot to be said with like opening up the gates, but there's also something about like, it sucks because it's not like the best comics are rising to the top and then are being marketed to people. It's like, we all just have to do all this ourselves. We have to figure out whose dick we got to suck. We got to figure out how we can market ourselves. You know, all this, it's like, I wonder if there's less meritocracy now than there ever was.
Oh, I definitely think that there's less, because like you can get famous on like, from a TikTok where it's like, oh, I'm going to go like this, like, shh. And then my girlfriend's asleep in bed. I'm going to take a cream pie and smash it in her face. And it's like, and then you get whatever, a fucking million hits off that when the whole thing was staged anyway. And even if it wasn't, what is that?
What is
You're
that?
pranking people? I don't know.
I don't know. It's depressing. It's a depressing world. When there's different advice, like some people say you got to post every day. Others say you should only post twice a week because otherwise your stuff will get buried by the next post and things.
Yeah.
And I can't tell, but I do see that the friends of mine who are posting like often, it is coming up in my feed all the time and it's going, yeah. And so then they seem like a famous, cool person that we should be supporting. And so I'm like, okay, I want me to be coming up in people's feeds all the time. And I want, people to be like following me and supporting me. But like, it's like, there's always different competing advice and you try to live a balanced life and like all of us have to make money and whatever. And I don't know. But then, I need to start asking my connections for help. But
then there's the backlash with like, Tom Segura, or now there's a podcast community around shitting on like a TMZ for podcasts, and this is these channels have been popping up like the last year or so, where it's like doing recaps of other podcasts or like, you wouldn't believe what so-and-so said. And it's like, you wouldn't have had access beyond just what these people's comedy specials were back in the day. And there's like the meritocracy, if you will. It's like you're judging them on the content of their comedy, not whether or not you disagree that, they snapped at a TSA worker in the airport.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I think there's a lot of kind of toxicity that just comes out of everyone having access to everyone else, but then we're told that that's how we gain our traction.
And then people will tell you like not to engage with the comments or something, but it's like, well, yeah, because you're famous, so you don't need to. But then if you're trying to build engagement, then it's like you're supposed to be responding to these comments and getting engagement up and whatever. I'm like, it's a shitty place to be. And I think the reality is that you're still always going to need some kind of hand up where someone either just, someone puts you on, Rogan puts you on his podcast, or somebody connects you with something, or you happen to go so viral for some stupid thing that happens to happen to you on stage while you've got a camera on it, and then people just are following you from then on, and you're touring and you're on all the festivals. I mean, you've seen these things before where it's like really one incident happened just the right time for someone, and it wasn't even anything that they really did that was that funny, but it's just like a little thing, and then all of a sudden their whole career is set, and you're like, but they've, and they're about a third as funny as I am. They've done comedy for half as long, whatever. Yeah. And anyway, we shouldn't just be in this bitterness.
No, but I think my next, instead of hiring a social media manager, I'm just going to hire people to start like throwing bottles at me while I'm on stage. Mm-hmm. And then I'll just.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's maybe, learn from Hinchcliffe, because we should just orchestrate things.
There is, yeah. And
why wait for it to organically happen when you could just pay someone, like pay a one-armed midget to come up and slap you in the balls during one of your jokes and then have a witty comeback for it ready?
There is, to be clear, like I wasn't even shitting on the idea of like story arc and theatricality, but I feel like we're in this weird era right now where like old school WWE, WWF,
right,
of which he's a massive fan,
right,
where it's like, what do you mean? No, this isn't orchestrated or fake.
Right.
Da, da, da. And then fans, because I was a wrestling kid when I was like in high, middle school and stuff, and I would like argue with my dad. I'm like, no, there's no. Look, I mean, he's really bleeding from the tacks that we're putting. It's like, but did they know that the tacks are going to go in or whatever?
Right.
And in the comedy scene, there's this kind of like denial of like, no, it's just purely, just go to Austin and live out of your car and you could be the next celebrity.
Right. If you happen to be Asian at the right time, that Tony needs an Asian to cover his tracks and whatever, or, whatever. It's like there has to be some story arc to it. So, yeah, but maybe like we've circled around, create our own story arc. You could just hire, some kind of non-binary person to come up and like misgender you on stage and turn that around. Like, that's what we should be doing. Why don't we... And everything is fake, and people don't really, and it's so annoying with comedy because a lot of comics will get up there and tell all kinds of fake stories and say things, and I hate that. Like, it's okay to exaggerate and things, but I'm like, I hate that because I'm telling the truth almost always, and I'll even tell you. I almost always say, like, if I make something up for a joke, I'll almost always say it afterwards, like, okay, well, that was a joke, but because I like truth telling in comedy. That's always been the part that I really cared about, is like, let's explore the truth and have fun with it and poke around at it and see what we can learn. But like, I don't like all a bunch of artifice in this that's just for the sake of a joke.
Well, there's also, I mean, I feel like, I don't know, you can say something that's not true and craft it in a way that it's understood.
Right,
that
exactly.
It's not
It needs
true.
to be understood that
but when
it's
you
not true.
sell it as
The truth.
the truth.
Yeah, just don't sell it as the truth if it's not the truth. I don't like that.
Yeah. Got any funny stories?
You know, just edit all of that out.
Yeah, no. I love hearing your opinions on things, and that you put nuance into them. Again, versus I just love, just in terms of terminology, I love that so much of this advocacy towards non-binariness ends up forming like these binary teams.
Yeah, exactly. It's like all of these people are celebrating non-binariness all the time, but then politically they're extremely binary and they force everyone else to be and stuff. Yeah.
I was watching a clip of yours today. I think it just popped up, but or no, I was trying to show you to somebody, but like
damn it, I was hoping it had popped up. I want them to pop up.
It's much more flattering if it had just popped up.
The algorithm to like me.
No, we were talking about like back in your day, like fighting for LGBT rights, whatever. Like it was, hey, I'm born this way. I can't help this. And now everything's kind of like, oh no, it's totally fluid. And I find that to be a very interesting juxtaposition, or like, we believe that gender is made up in a construct, but at the same time we're also going to focus on,
we also need to perform surgeries to
yeah,
change
exactly
it. Yeah, no, I mean, to me, like, we should have a much clearer idea. Like, the queer community doesn't have our own story straight about what we're doing with all this gender stuff. So I wish everyone could just basically get on this page. There are two sexes. Of course, there are some intersex conditions, but it's like when you say that occasionally someone's born without a leg doesn't mean the human species isn't bipedal. Okay. So there are two sexes. And then gender is an expression and a vibe sort of thing. Gender used to be really dictated to people that men have to do all these things and women have to do all those things because it was a division of labor. Like, societies function in those ways. And there are differences between males and females on average and at the extremes, but like some significant differences in terms of strength and size, etc., horniness. And so you have this, but sometimes, little boys act like chicks in a bunch of ways. Some little girls act like dudes in a bunch of ways. Sometimes that stuff shifts over a lifetime. Some people, maybe everyone has a range of gender expression, and for some people it's from 7 to 9, and some people it's from 3 to 5, other people it's from 4 to 6, other people it's from 1 to 9, whatever. It can be all kinds of stuff, but it's an expression, it's a vibe. We live in a wealthy enough society where it doesn't need to be that we have to be that rigid about rules and what people do and their functions. For a while, it was like, okay, we're a wealthy enough society that now women can be pretty. We can spend our time and resources doing our hair and nails and makeup and clothes if you're doing well, and the men can be the ones who work really hard. And then, okay, now we're a wealthy enough society that both sexes could spend more time grooming and looking nice and things, or people can choose, and some women don't want to groom as much, and like all of that stuff should just be totally open. Anyone can play with whatever they want, dress however they want, cut their hair however they want, change your name if the vibe isn't right, whatever. I don't really see the point in changing pronouns. It doesn't seem to mean anything. Whatever your pronoun might be at this point. If your pronoun can be she, but you don't seem like a woman in any way, or you can be they, them, but you just seem like a regular dude or chick. If it can be z, zim, or some other thing that doesn't mean anything at all. So pronouns no longer mean anything if we're going to do that. So I just think get rid of that system where the pronouns don't mean anything and just make them strictly about sex. Or if you've actually transitioned hormonally, then we can call you anyway.
It's also it's an exceptionally American thing, and like we're all about it's my identity and myself and whatever. You go to I've lived all fucking over, and the only places where this has become an issue is when it's the concept that's come from the States that is penetrated in, and the more fluency of English, the more that this has happened. But
there's so many countries where, like in Korean, they don't have gendered pronouns. I think I'm getting this straight, but it's like I could be mixing up different languages. But I know I was in Korea recently, and they were talking about like how they knew some people who like because they wanted to put their pronouns at their email signature, but because there aren't gendered pronouns in Korean, they were just writing the English gendered pronouns. Like you already have a gender neutral language.
Yeah.
And now you're adding they, them.
Right.
In English to your and it was the same thing. There was someone was telling me about, like, in Finland, there's something else like that where they're trying to sneak in some kind of thing because they didn't. It's like these places that already have gender neutral language are still trying to be woke or whatever about it, and it doesn't make any sense. And it's the same way Americans kind of we exported our eating disorders to all these Asian countries and stuff. Like, I've read this whole book about like, I can't remember what it's called, but it was about, like, basically how once we start reporting on or influencing these other countries, they develop all the disorders that we have. And the same stuff is going on with gender. And you've got all these people who could have probably lived a very happy life, not medically intervening in their bodies and things, but, you know, and kind of learned how to live as a female or male or whatever. Most people could. There are a small percentage of people who have an insane amount of dysphoria and kind of we're always going to have some issue, and it's nice to be able to help them. But the problem is once you make that available and you tell people this is normal, everybody's doing it, and you might really be in the wrong body, that starts to put this kind of contagious idea in people's heads that, like, maybe they need that. Maybe that's what's going to make them happier. And in fact, here's the story for you. I just did a podcast with this person who runs a gender clinic in Portland, and their PR person had reached out to me because they basically were just trying to get free advertising for their clinic. And so they had reached out to me to be on my Gender Fluids podcast, which no longer happens. But if anybody wants a hilarious and fucked up podcast to listen to, Gender Fluids. But so I wrote back and was like, I'm not doing Gender Fluids anymore. But if you want to do my personal podcast, then I'm happy to have you on. But just to let you know, I'm going to be asking this founder and CEO person, like, some difficult questions about, you know, youth transition and things like that. So if they're interested in that, whatever. So I have them on and, you know, we have a good conversation. I wasn't too combative. I just kind of like was asking some difficult questions and letting them kind of, you know, say their thing. And I think people can listen to it and make their own conclusions about how much this stuff makes sense.
What's the name of that podcast?
Well, I'm just transitioning now to the.
You're transitioning.
I'm always transitioning. So now I'm transitioning to be AI Norman. That's going to be my stage name from now on, my performing name. And also my YouTube channel is already AI Norman. And so instead of putting it out under the politically non-binary podcast, I'm going to be putting everything out from now on in my AI Norman YouTube channel. And then AI Norman will also be the name of my Spotify, Apple, whatever version of all of this. But so during the course of this podcast, I mentioned that, you know, I, as a kid, always played boy characters and had like boy names and played like Ken doll when my sister was Barbie. And I have always had some, you know, amount of discomfort with my body, and especially my boobs, and like wearing a swimsuit. Like if I do anything that's like characteristically feminine, like paint my nails, like I feel like a transvestite, you know. If I, you know, like wearing like a feminine outfit, like a dress or a one piece or something like that, is a total non-starter for me. It's very like, you know, like nails on a chalkboard in my soul. And so I just think of myself as basically like a dude on the inside, like the kind of the way a lot of the people who transition are. I just don't think the risk benefit analysis of transitioning is worth it. I think it's not the ideal thing. I think it's great. It's better to show the world like that females can be all types of different ways, instead of saying, well, this means I'm really not a female or a woman. It's like, I don't think that's really actually helpful. But so I kind of explained a little bit of like my gendery stuff to this person who was himself a trans man. And because he said that he hadn't had any dysphoria until after puberty. It was after puberty he decided he wanted to be a man or whatever. And so, you know, I was kind of sharing my story to give this example of like, well, some people have all that gender shit, but grow up to be very happy to be women because I get to be a lesbian. You know, my girlfriend likes my boobs. Like, it's kind of a, you know, it's kind of a hot situation for me to like be a dude who gets to be a lesbian, as I say in my special, you know. And so I kind of shared, you know, my story about that. And then after the podcast, this dude writes me this message that's all like, blah, blah, blah. Thank you for doing the podcast, blah, blah, blah. And then says like, it, some of the stuff you shared with me really stuck with me. And if you ever want to talk to someone about it, like not in a therapist role, but just like if you ever want to, or when you're ready to explore those things, you should really talk to someone like very clearly, like trying to get me into the trans cult, because he sees this as like, I'm threatening to him because I'm someone who said, yeah, I'm the same as you, but you don't have to become as male as possible and do that to your endocrine system and your liver and blah, blah, blah. You don't have to sign up for sucking the pharmaceutical company's dicks for the rest of your life just because there's this thing now that you can do to be like, I'll masculinize myself more so.
Which also, like, again, the like leftist, whatever you want to call it, I don't even know anymore, but of like, you're perfect the way you are. You're everyone's beautiful. Your body. Yeah.
Born this way, whatever.
Yeah.
And why are we so sure if your mind and your body are at all at odds with each other, if that's how we're painting this, why are we so sure your body's wrong?
Yeah.
And that seems to me like such a masculine approach, because to me, I think of the body as a more feminine thing. It's more like grounded and more like kind of in tune with nature and earth, and the mind is more of this masculine thing of like, we think we can consciously impose all kinds of stuff on the world and ourselves and our bodies. We think of ourselves as our minds instead of our bodies, when we're really mind-body systems, and there is no separation between your mind and your body. And so I just think of it as such a masculine approach to go, okay, if our minds and bodies are at odds, that means that our body's wrong, and let's do Western medicine to change our bodies to what we want them to be, and transcend our bodies. Like, that's not my vibe. And so, but this guy who has this gender clinic where he, and I asked, and I said, well, so are any of these children changing their minds when you put them on this pipeline of puberty blockers to hormones? No, none of them are changing their minds. It's like, okay. So interesting that he takes that to mean that they all are going to be happy this way, but he's not following up with them. I asked about that too. Doesn't follow up with them years later. Not that there are that many years. We don't have that much longitudinal information at this point about what happened, because it's just a new guinea pig situation we're doing, but he's not really following up with them. And so he just tells himself the story that he's helping all of these kids who really needed this life-saving stuff, even though if they had all been born 20 years in the past, they never would have known to want these possibilities. Right. And so, I'm like, kind of showing him this other way and saying like, hey, maybe, not everybody does need to transition, and he can't have that. Right. He needs me to really be an egg. He really needs me to be someone who is really trans on the inside, and I'm just fighting it. And so he's got to convert me to it, because it's so like, the thing that's so hard about getting people out of this mentality that we should transition all these kids is that if you have already helped kids transition, and it's possible that it's not a good thing, that you're actually doing like irreparable fucked up shit to these kids, then that's so horrible. You can't know that about yourself, whether you're a parent or you're a clinician. If you've been involved in that, if it were to turn out that you have really, really harmed these children, these vulnerable people, and done some fucked up stuff to them, then you couldn't believe, like, our brains won't let us do that. The cognitive dissonance will stop us from seeing how fucked up, that we've harmed children, because they're good people. They don't want to harm children. And so they need to believe that this really is essential life-saving stuff that they're doing for these people, and that it's okay if the kid does get liver cancer or whatever, years down the line, that was worth it, because they otherwise would have killed themselves if they hadn't gotten this. And so he has to tell himself the story that I'm really trans, and he needs me, because if I were to convert to really be trans, that would justify his whole life project and stuff like that.
I don't have anything beyond anecdotal evidence for this, but I have a couple friends who teach English over in Thailand, and teach all the way through college age kids, and who've said, like, when she asked my one specific friend about how many of the boys in the class wanted to become lady boys, like half of the boys said that they wanted to become lady boys. But part of the thing there is apparently, like, it's, again, this is just anecdotal, I don't have any evidence for this beyond that, but like, it's so homophobic there that if you're a boy and you like boys, oh, you're a woman.
Yeah.
Like, there's not room for the homosexuality.
Absolutely.
So the room is like, okay, then you become a woman, and that a lot of these lady boys who are genetically men who like other men probably are just gay.
Gay dudes. Yeah, absolutely. And I've heard that story from both people who've transitioned and detransitioners that was a huge influence for them, that they didn't want to be gay and being trans was better. Some people can even get married in certain countries and situations where they wouldn't have been able to get married if they hadn't transitioned, because gay marriage isn't legal, but now that everyone's transitioned. And yeah, this homophobia thing, like, it's strange that people would still be so homophobic even in this country, that would be better for them. But you do hear that. And so this idea that there's a conversion therapy, it's like away from being trans, if you just try to explore with people that, like, maybe you're a gay person, it's the opposite. You're converting gay people. Most of these people, because the studies that we have, that we do have studies that show, like, in the past, before this Tumblr age, that all the people who signed up and, like, wanted to, or, like, who said that they had gender dysphoria at a young age, like prepubescents who said that they had this gender dysphoria, it almost always resolved, and most of them went on to become gay men. So now you take that whole cohort and you go, oh, actually, that means you're really a woman, and then we should transition you as much as possible. And we have all these children's books now too that are telling kids, like, hey, you might be in the wrong body, and it's cool though, because everyone thought so and so was a boy, but then she said she's really a girl, and so now it's great. Now everyone knows she's really a girl, but they're not. So if you tell that to kids get this idea that, like, you can really be a girl. You'll just be a girl. And it's like, so then they're going to put them on this whole pipeline, because they're going to get really uncomfortable when they start having any signs of puberty and things. And I'm really a girl and I can't handle this. And so it's like,
I thought I broke my arm in second grade, and I was really obsessed with playing X-Men with my friends. And I was always Gambit or Nightcrawler. I didn't understand. This is more of about a lack of my Marvel awareness. That Nightcrawler was not a cat, he's a demon. My point is, I broke my arm and we went to go get x-rays, and I was genuinely afraid but also excited that they were going to discover that I had cat bone structure in my arms.
Yeah.
This was a real fear of mine.
Kids don't know what's going on. You're taking kids, some of these kids still believe in Santa Claus, and you're telling them you can change genders, you can change sexes.
Right.
So yeah, and then anyway, the whole thing has gotten so obnoxious, and that community is so insular. They won't listen to anybody else, and they won't listen even to their own community, people who have questions and concerns and thoughts and comments and ideas. They just won't listen, and they'll, I just did a podcast recently, and because of that, on some trans Reddit thing, they were posting about how we're all horrible, and then a sort of friend of mine's ex posted, who's recently transitioned to being a woman and has been, like, posting, like, these are the bad people kind of posts on Facebook, tagged me on that post and said, hey, like, this is you exercise caution and don't book them. They always call me them, even though I've never identified that way. Don't book them on any queer events and things.
Oh my God.
And so then I went and read the thing, and they said something that was a complete mischaracterization of what I said on the podcast. I said all trans women are a certain type of way, when I said there are some people who call themselves trans women who are a certain type of way. And so I went on there and I just kind of said, I went onto the Reddit post and said, hey, like, actually, this is what I said. And I would encourage anybody to actually go listen to that podcast and see what you think of what I said. But this is what I actually said. And it's very, like, not defensive, just kind of like stating the reality. I wasn't combative in anything. And so immediately I get a response back from the original poster saying, I know what I heard, and shut up. Stop trying to stop talking over and for trans women. Get out of our space.
Jesus.
And then they blocked me. So whatever. And then reported me for hate speech because I used a term that corrected what they had said about me. Yeah. They said the term. Then I corrected what they said about the term. So now I'm using hate speech for using that term. And so also it's like, okay, so this is a forum where people have a conversation. I mean, you misquoted me. Yeah. I responded to that. And then you said, what you heard, which is like anyone can go listen to it and they can actually hear that what I said anyway. And then it's like, so you're the one who's talking for me. You're literally putting words into my mouth. And then when I say what I actually said, you're again putting words into my mouth.
And assigning you your pronouns.
Assigning me my pronouns. And then kicking me out of this particular space. And it's like, okay, so if anyone was talking over and for, like, I didn't talk over anyone. I responded.
Right.
And I like, but this is something I see on these forums sometimes.
Yeah.
Stop talking over and for women of color, trans women, whatever, all this. And you're like, okay, no, it's a conversation. Maybe you guys don't ever have any conversations in real life, because talking over someone is a very specific thing that happens in real life. And that is annoying. But when you're responding to a post, it's inherently not talking over anyone.
Yeah.
And you're talking for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So here's someone who's talking over and for a woman.
Yeah.
And then projecting that this woman is talking over and for trans women, like complete nonsense.
Yeah.
And then reporting me for whatever. And so then on the Facebook thing, I also responded a very measured and like really, just, hey, like, I hear what you're saying, and I don't know if you've actually listened to the podcast, but blah blah blah, and just kind of gave like a very, like, hey, I just think that there could be more intellectual diversity in the queer world. And someone posted, like a mutual friend of ours posted on that and said, don't you know that this thing that you said has been debunked by all these people? And they posted a link. And then the original poster post under that, oh, don't even bother. They don't care about science, which, okay. So I responded and said, hey, I really do care about science, and I will read this. Might take me a couple of days, but I do care, and I try to read stuff from all over the political spectrum, and so I will read this. And what I'm taking from all of this, it's like each side points to the other and says that their science isn't very good enough. And from what I can tell, no one's science is good enough. We just don't have a lot of data. And that's all I'm trying to say. When it comes to youth transition, we just don't have any good data. Like, there's just not enough to be doing this in any other way besides as these studies, which is what all the European countries have realized, is that they can't just, this isn't a standard of care that they can get behind, that we need to be back in clinical trials and really doing better trials. And so it's not that one science is right and the other is wrong, or one person's lying. It's like, no, there's not good information. And so I agree with you. And so I just kind of, again, gave a very measured, response, being like, hey, I actually will read that, and thanks for sending it. And but I think that we just don't have settled science, is my point. And then, which
is like an advocacy for
I want
more
science.
Yes,
I want to figure out how we can help.
That's not anti-science. You're like, hey, the more data we get, the better.
Yeah, it's not anti-trans, or it's not anti-vax. It's whatever. It's like, we actually need to make sure that we are helping these kids, and we can figure out what the best thing that we can do for them is. And so then the original poster blocked me.
Yeah, fantastic.
So I should have taken a screenshot, because it's like, they don't want you to be reasonable. They don't want you to care about the science. They want to be able to paint you as this demon. I
want to share quickly a story it's not, and by the way, it's not shitting on this person. It's just, I want to call it a funny story. I'm sure it's not funny for this person, but there's a trans comic, we'll talk after, but like, who transitioned to be a man. Well, like, not everything about being a man is great. No. And I've been fighting my whole life with fucking baldness and stuff. And they message me, because I like post about that a lot. Well, when they started taking testosterone, they started to go bald.
Yeah.
And they stopped transitioning because they're like, I don't want to be a bald dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I put that in my Ellen DeGeneres list, right? I'm like, I can't even begin to think about transitioning because I don't want to go bald.
Yeah.
And it's not worth it. And there's so many of these little nuggets, these little kids who are coming to their doctors and saying like, hey, like, I want a deeper voice. And I maybe want to be like a little stronger, maybe a little more confident, but I really don't want bottom growth, and I don't want to grow facial hair, and I definitely don't want to go bald. Like, can we do that? And it's like, okay, like, once we all live in the Matrix, you can choose your own characteristics like that.
Right.
But this is a human body.
Yeah.
We're not these crazy Frankenstein scientists yet who can just give you, if we could all like just switch genders, and just like have fun doing that, switch sexes and have fun doing that, where you're like, hey, I got a dick today and a broader shoulder and then I could go back to like not having that and whatever. Like, sure, that would be fun, but it's like, we don't have a science for that, and we're acting as if we have much better technology than we do.
And but like the idea of like lifelong body dysmorphia and believing that your body is not correct for you, and I'm going to start taking hormone therapy to change my gender. Because the only thing that I can think of worse than being in a woman's body, it would be being a bald dude. Yeah, and it's like,
a bald dude with no dick.
Hey, yeah.
Which is better in some ways, but I don't know. It's like, yeah, if I could have like a dick but no balls, or really high tight ball, like everything had to be.
I like the,
You know?
I as a guy, I enjoy having the balls. There's something about it's like a pen, keep the pace, you know. Okay, we
should wrap it up.
Yeah.
There was at least one story in there.
There was. Yeah, I'll have a fun time editing this.
Okay. Yeah. Please do.
You have a special out.
Yes, Ellen DeGenderless, available on YouTube. Just search Ellen DeGenderless.
Cool. And on the socials?
Right now, I'm still Ellen DeGenderless on Instagram and Hot Hannah Gatsby.
You're Hot Hannah Gatsby.
I know. You should, because every time I have like a friend who like posts something about me or somebody does, there's always people in the comments being like, I can't believe you had Hannah Gatsby on, blah, blah, blah. It's like, you think Hannah Gatsby's handle is Hot Hannah Gatsby? Yeah. That's so crazy. But eventually everything will be AI Norman. But for now, that's the Instagram and whatever. And is there anything else people really need to know now that, yeah, just follow me on Instagram. Message me if you really like me and want me to come to your town. I've still got like an individualized thing where I'll just get your phone number or email and let you know when I come do comedy.
Cool. I thoroughly enjoy your thoughts and your comedy. Thank you for coming on. You can follow me at Eric Berry Comedy and all that stuff. Subscribe, comment, depending on what YouTube does with content of this. We'll see. Please feel free to comment and have a nice, hearty, healthy discussion in the comments.
Say something in the comments about how we never mentioned gender or whatever. Sorry, you're going to have to unalivingness.
Yeah.
People of unaliving experiences.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Arielle, thank you so much.
Thanks, Eric.
All right, there you have it. Again, I thought that was an awesome conversation with Arielle. I hope you enjoyed it. Please follow her, follow me, subscribe to the show, and yeah, I think this is gonna be it for Austin for a while. Really appreciate you guys watching and supporting. Comment, like, subscribe, or just send your love through the ether or in the comments. Till then, I'm Eric Berry. Love you. Keep it dirty. How fitting. That was not. Yeah. Does this do anything? Love? Hey, it does. All right. Gay. Love you guys.